Okay, great. Well, so now the recording, let me just repeat what I said a moment ago, is we're going to begin with this question, I think, of how we might engage in systemic change for the benefit of life, which really is, I was just saying, a question that I actually ask myself every day of my life. Really, I organize my entire life around the way to answer this question. So it's really key for me. And before I say anything more, just how about you, Andreas? Where does that question play a role in your own life?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you are somehow the systemic answer to the systemic question, actually. And I mean, as I know your life a little bit, at least I know the life when you started to really engage with systemic change, or you had engaged with systemic change before you published your first book, the first book of the planned three, right? I mean, probably you like it's always like when you're writing books, you have ideas for more books, so maybe three is not up to date anymore, but there's a third book which is actually about how to make systemic change possible and how to do it. It's right. So this is even right spot on the topic. So that is what you do actually. And yeah, so I leave this. I mean, I'm seriously personally interested actually in an update of where you are. And I admit that from time to time I think of you looking at the bleak state of the world.
Mhm.
I think of you and I think, how is Jeremy going to deal with this?
Mhm. Mhm.
I think of you really, like really, because I know that when we last chatted from person to person, which is kind of like some years ago, actually, and the world was different,
Yeah,
looked different.
right.
So okay, but I mean, just um, now I somehow kick the ball back to you, but I can just say something about myself, which is I'm in a way I'm also continuously involved with experiencing the deadly wrong state of our culture. So that's also something I can never can escape. It's always there, of course, like always, always, always. But I'm not engaged in systemic change, not like you. I'm more engaged in opening doors to the change of the heart, which is
Hmm.
then a personal thing, maybe. And it is more and more my work to try to lay a path for this in direct contact with people. So
Yeah.
it's I mean I think it's the same way of being continuously like never not being conscious or emotionally engaged with this, but it's I think it's somehow it's a different take, I would say, and which is my style somehow, my flavor
Hmm. Hmm.
probably. Yeah, but I'd really like to know from you. Yeah, I also like to know how you're not overwhelmed. I mean,
Yes.
I'm this is also something people ask me, and but I'd like, and I mean, I ask you this even from a
Mhm.
certain point of a certain, like between two traumatized people who deal with
Yes.
the stuff that traumatizes them every day,
Mhm.
it's a little bit like, hey, how are you dealing with all the blood and all the corpses? How are you doing it?
Yes, exactly. No, God. I mean, we're really going to the heart of the matter right away. Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
that's
No,
what
thank you
Misha
for
wanted
that.
us to do. We're
Exactly,
just
exactly.
obedient.
Right, right. And now let me just pause. I want to check in whenever is a good time for the translation to take place, just so people can stay abreast. Is this a good moment just to pause so you can summarize that first section? And then now, please feel free to interrupt when you do feel is a good time so that I want to make sure everyone stays current with what's being said.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you for your care. And I would just I would sum up what especially what Andreas said.
Yeah. And I will go to just drink some water. I forgot to get some water. And you go ahead, Misha. I'll be back in a second.
My jsme si tady z těch tematických okruhů, který nám Jeremy nastínil, tak jsme si tady, protože někteří vlastně tady nebyli, tak jenom, no, tak jsme z těch 6 vybrali který bychom rádi začali. A ty okruhy jsou, jak se můžeme angažovat v systémové změně pro dobro života. A ta druhá otázka pak by byla, jaké jsou naše osobní praxe. Jo? Takže vlastně to, co Jeremy s Andreasem začali vlastně reflektovat, tak byla ta otázka systémové změny. A v podstatě Jeremy zmiňoval, že to je otázka, kterou si tady každý den. Jak to vlastně udělat? Jo, vlastně sám pro sebe, když píše vlastně ve své tvorbě to, co dává dál. A Andreas na to reagoval, že ho vlastně zajímá, jako o čem píše, jak se vlastně posouvá, protože tím, jak se vlastně ta situace neustále mění, tak jak se vlastně posouvá i to jeho vědomí a vlastně to opakování témat. A vlastně Andreas na to reagoval, že on až tak jako se na tu systémovou úroveň nesoustředuje, ale že vlastně co ho zajímá, tak je vlastně otevírání srdce a v podstatě hledání toho, jak být emočně angažovaný a vědomý na té osobní úrovni. Tak máte k tomu ještě někdo něco, třeba co jste postřehli, co by bylo důležité říct?
Systémový osobní,
co oni říkali. K tomu, co řečeno. A teď si myslím, že Andreas řekl svoje a Jeremy bude pokračovat tím vlastně, jako by vlastně muzickým ponorem do tématu systémové změny. Takže jestli k tomu nemám žádné otázky nebo něco, tak Jeremy, now we are really curious how we would proceed.
So maybe to begin with, I just want to say where I am right now. I'm in my studio in my home where I work from. I'm looking at the computer, but behind the computer, I have a framed picture with a statement on it right behind me. And what it says, what can I do for the greatest benefit of all life? And that's the question that I try to live into answering every day of my life. And the first thing really I'd want to say is, to me, that is the question for all of us to be asking all the time. And I do think that for each one of us, we answer that in a different way. And also we may answer it in a different way at different times in our life, and even different times during the day. You know, it's not like it's a fixed answer. And so I hear you say, Andreas, for you, it's so much about opening the hearts of people and becoming, I sense that, you know, just becoming aware of that greater expansiveness of identity. And for me, and this is just personally for me, because I feel that one thing I can do skillfully is summarize lots of different research and try to offer it in a way that is available for people to understand, that shifts their minds maybe a little. That's kind of what I'm doing. And for me, I'll tell you how I see systemic change, basically. I'm very much look at it from the point of view of systems thinking. And there's this very famous quote, I think I might have quoted this last week when we were talking, from Ilya Prigogine. He says, when a system is far from equilibrium, small islands of coherence in a sea of chaos have the capacity to lift the entire system to a higher order. And to me, this is what it's about. Like, I see our current system unraveling, and maybe it unravels over years, 10, 20, 30 years, like a lot of time. But to me, the question is, what will, when it reorganizes itself, what will it look like? And to me, the most important thing is to try to influence that system so it reorganizes itself in a positive way. And my sense is that the big thing that is missing in the overall way in which people are, in our culture overall, is a sense of a vision of what is actually possible in a positive future. That many, many people, millions, hundreds of millions of people around the world are aware of what's wrong. And many people are aware of something that should be done better. We should have more equality, or we should save ecosystems, or we should reduce fossil fuels. There's so many different things that we know need to be done. But there's very little of a sense of what is actually possible in terms of a fundamentally different future. There's another quote that really affects me that I organize my life around right now. It's a quote from Slavoj Žižek, who some of you may know of. And he says, for most people, it's easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism. And I think that's true. And what I'm trying to work on in this book that I'm working right now on ecological civilization, that I shared with you all a few days ago, some of those ideas, is to help people to imagine there is something that we can end capitalism, and we can actually come up with a different system that could actually work. And the idea is to cohere all these different ideas that people have around the world, all the different energies, into a more coherent, powerful attractor that can help to form that new way in which our system can reorganize. So I'll pause there. But then I wanted to really touch on the other thing you raised, Andreas, about how we deal with the darkness. But let me just pause and give you a chance, Misha, to communicate that.
Thank you, Jeremy. And maybe before I translate, I summarize for in Czech. I have the need to tell you something, because with a group of people here, a few days ago, we decided that Friday, that means yesterday, it was what day was it? It was 17th?
Yesterday.
It was 16th.
16th.
It was 16th of August. We decided that 16th of August would be the day of the last day of capitalism. So yesterday, we celebrated the end of capitalism. So, and today we asked ourselves whether we already feel the difference. So maybe just when I just translate to the Czech colleagues now, you can sense whether you feel any difference today yourself.
I think I'll write a letter to the Guardian. They could pick up that as a headline, global headline. Capitalism has ended. Can you imagine people running to their banks and trying to get?
You see, maybe just a decision, not just a decision which is materialized in a decision. Okay, this is the law.
I love this. I think it's also wonderfully apt that this has been decided in Prague in mid-August. It's fantastic. You made history.
Yeah,
and wonderful. We are among the first to know this. Wonderful. I'll tell all my friends. Let's see tonight here in Italy. I'll tell them capitalism doesn't exist anymore. They will panic.
That's right. So in history, we've been talking about the Prague Spring for so many years. Now we can talk about the Prague Summer.
It is so beautiful. Yes.
Okay, so just now give us few seconds to translate. Já začnu s tím, co jsem říkala, protože ne všichni tady víte, že my jsme předváděli to tady tak jako evidentně vyplynulo, že jsme se rozhodli, že v pátek 16. srpna skončí kapitalismus. A včera jsme to tedy oslavili, ten konec kapitalismu. A dnes jsme si jenom tak jako zreflektovali, jestli si cítíme teda jako že nám to nás působí už to společnost jinak, než to už bylo včera. Jo. Tak vám to nabízím jenom jakoby pak jak budete mít chvilku, tak se tam zaměřit, jako jestli cítíte nějaké změny tady toho významného aktu.
Tak musíme oslavit rovný den bez kapu. Jako druhá oslava, první den.
Jo. Já myslím, že to můžu slavit každý den, že to je významný krok pro nás osobně i pro lidstvo. Ale to je teďka odbočujeme.
Jak budeme dřít, tak tam to vyhlásím. Jako tam teď vyhlásil, že jako se mě straní okoleva, tak mě jako konec.
Vy máte otázku, která začíná. Tady o tím, jako já mám se vůbec tohle, a to už mám otázku, kterou můžeme mít to. Já vlastně mám takovou, co říkal Jeremy. Tak vlastně on začal to jeho sdílení tím, že má u počítače otázku, na kterou si každý den kouká, na kterou vlastně každý den hledá odpověď a co můžu udělat já pro vlastně vyšší dobro v životě. Je to tak. Všeho života. A že vlastně jako tu otázku nabízí nám a že vlastně každý z nás může mít samozřejmě jiné odpovědi a v jiných obdobích jiné odpovědi, takže, ale je to spíš odpověď nabídka, prostě hledat odpověď na tu otázku. A co vlastně Jeremy dělá, tak vlastně on čte hodně vlastně vstupů a vlastně dělá syntézu výzkumu a vlastně se přistupňuje know-how veřejnosti vlastně formou, která je pro veřejnost přijatelná, jo? Když to takhle řeknu. A vlastně pak citoval Ilju Prigožina, což vlastně tady citoval v tom vlastně jednom už v té jedné přednášce, když je systém vychýlený ze své rovnováhy, tak i malé ostrůvky, vlastně malé ostrůvky v tom systému se mohou vlastně mohou způsobit, že ten systém zvednou na vyšší úroveň. No a v podstatě vlastně zamýšlít se nad otázkami, jak bude vypadat vlastně budoucí systém, jo? Protože vnímá to, že vlastně co nám chybí, je vlastně ta vize, jakoby ta představa toho, co je možné. Jo? Že vlastně tušíme většina z nás, co je špatně, to dokážeme jako většina společnost říct, pak pár z nás ví, co by mělo být, jo? Prostě klima, změna a podobně. Ale že je vlastně velmi málo z nás, kteří mají představu a můžou říct, co je možné. A pak vlastně zmiňoval víc. A teď se dostáváme tady k tomu, že začali, nevím, Slavo Bzuča, děkuji. A to je vlastně ta jeho oblíbená otázka, že vlastně pro většinu lidí je víc kalitelné, že skončí svět, že bude konec světa, než že skončí kapitalismus. Na což my jsme teda navázali tady tím, že máme místo pražského jara, budeme mít pražské léto a teď jenom proto hledáme ten nový název pro to další období toho léta, co přijde po tom létě. Jako. Takže jenom jako vlastně, jestli k tomu máte někdo, kdo jste poslouchali ještě něco, co ještě by bylo třeba přihodit, nebo dodat.
Hezky to zhrnula.
Jo, tak otázky, takže ta otázka tady tohle, nebo máte ještě třeba něco vás napadá? Jo, okay, so based on the discussion, we have a question on you, which is how this epoch, starting from today, shall be called and how it should look like. What is possible for the epoch?
Well, that's great, and let's. I mean, my quick answer to that is the very thing that you are focusing your whole session, everything on. That I love the symbiocene. I really give myself to that name, and that's I'll be in this book. I'm writing Ecological Civilization. I'll be ending that book with a this kind of description of this possible epoch in the future, the symbiocene. What about you, Andreas, on that?
Yeah, I mean, mankind is very good in totally precociously giving names to epochs they're living in, and then even giving their own name to the epochs, like the Anthropocene. So I don't know if I would dare to give a name. Maybe I would say new realism. Just keep in touch with reality, which is about which is profoundly about giving life. So you know what you mentioned, what is on this quote. Who is actually who do you quote? What can I do for the greatest benefit of all life?
That was my own question to myself.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, that's your quote, and you know, it's actually, this means, how can you give life? It's very simple, and interestingly, life is what gives life. So life is that which gives life, or you could even say, I mean, I would even say, living the reality itself, which is alive, is about giving life. Mm-hmm. And it's also very in line with this old Buddhist precept, which you hear, you dedicate all your efforts and all the fruition to the benefits of all beings. And the audience probably remembers that I did this starting my talk. And actually, I forgot to thank all the beings who were with us this morning, but I can do it now. They're still with us. And for all their help and their power and their inspiration. And I actually gave a very different talk this morning. I only talked about swallows because I asked the swallows for assistance, and they somehow really wanted to stay in the talk. So it changes things. So Misha, sorry, I'm rambling. So I would really say we just need to go back into understanding that giving is what is required from all of us, and that the gift is also given to all of us. It's very simple, actually. And when we tune into this, then as Robin Wall Kimmerer says, this world will go on forever. It is absolutely timeless. And so I really like this as a personal challenge, because I think that is actually the level on which we should act. This is the challenge, and then do it. And of course, fail, and then do it again and try again. And this is the level. And you could also say that's love. Mm-hmm. Love is acting in the interest of other life. Little tentative definition. And it's also a very old thing. So if you go into a very old traditional culture, then people will tell you that they're actually there in order to help life to flourish, in order to keep the balance so that life goes on forever. It's a very old, very common thing. It's not even very particularly special, only that we isn't even right, because I wouldn't include myself in this. I wouldn't include yourself in this. I wouldn't include the audience in this. But many powerful people don't behave in this way, and also many not so powerful people don't behave in this way. And I'm not really answering your question, Misha, but I try. I'm still trying. And so just to adding to you, I think you also asked, and how should we do it, right? Something like this. Was there something like this in your question? And I mean, it is also very practical. Your precept is very practical. So if you put it a little bit differently, a little bit less abstract, and say, how can I give life in every moment? And it's a very practical question. You can ask yourself this question in every moment. Am I contributing to life? Am I productive to the life I am in touch with in this very moment? The lady behind the counter in the bakery, for example, or whatever, the tarmac road in front of me. I mean, you will always know the answer. Mm-hmm. You can at least train to learn to know the answer. We will know it because we have an organ for this, which the Sufis call the heart, which is our perceptive organ for how well love is distributed. So we know it, actually. So we can, that's all I would say. This is what we really can do. So this is, we can start in this very moment. this is absolutely within our power, at least not to be perfect in this, of course, but to try. So we can start right now. So that's what I would say in this new epoch after capitalism. I like this so much. I find this so surreal. It's so lovely that capitalism actually, it is over. So I think we can really do this, and it requires a lot of practice. We will fall on our nose. We will see that we have so crazy blockages, and we are actually so many of us are so incredibly afraid of doing this. So there's a lot of crazy obstacles, but that is something we can really, everybody can do. Everybody can start right now in this minute, and there's no excuse. So that's what I would say. But there was only one half of us.
Misha, you want to just summarize, and then I'll.
Tak jak jsem tu otázku trošku rozšířila, jak jsem měla jmenovat to období a vlastně jsem využila to, co Jeremy řekl, co je tam možné. Jo? Jak by se to mohlo vyznačovat, to období, ta nová epocha, která přichází od dneška, ta epocha po kapitalismu. A Jeremy se vlastně líbí název symbiocénu, který jsme se líbí, už vyslovili na zastávce. Nějak jsme se to tady potvrdili už během cesty dneska. A v podstatě, jak by to mohlo vypadat, popisuje v závěru své nové knihy. Se na to můžeme těšit. A Andreas říká, a to se nepochopil, bylo to neorealismus? Neorealismus. Jo, takže nový realismus. Jo. Nový realismus a v podstatě měl by být charakterizovaný vlastně dáváním života a otázkou, jak můžeš dávat život a jak můžeš vlastně, nebo co můžeš udělat pro dobro všech bytostí a vlastně co můžeš udělat pro dobro, vlastně pro život a pro dobro živých bytostí v každém momentu. Jo, takže kdyby vlastně každý z nás se nesl dali otázku a vlastně v každém momentu, když jsme třeba někdo stojí na pekárně a podobně, tak vlastně jenom si tak tuto otázku zkusil odpovědět, jak udělám teďka něco, čím přispívám k dobrému žití všech bytostí. Jo, takže vlastně tohle vlastně to nesení vlastně takovéhle otázky a vlastně otevřeného srdce je to, co vidí Andreas jako charakteristiku. A je vlastně tu cestu, jak se vlastně dostat do té nové epochy, kterou byla nazývá novým realismem. A teď se zeptám, jestli jsem řekla všechno, nebo k tomu máte ještě někdo něco?
Co ještě dobrý, jak říkal v tom soufijským vlastně o tom principu, že já jsem to napsala takhle, že srdce je velmi citlivý orgán, který nám každou chvíli říká, jestli proudí láska. Jo, že on mluvil ještě o té lásce, principu, který vlastně to celý jako tvoří, a že to srdce se může vlastně každou chvíli jako zeptat, jestli to tam je nebo ne.
Napadá vás tomu nějaká otázka, kterou bychom mohli vlastně položit na upřesnění? Nebo nějaký komentář?
Musíme začít dneska a není žádná výmluva.
Ano.
Musíme začít.
To
bylo takové formální vyhlášení, co každý pověděl, že
we are just here people of action, and we believe that tomorrow was late. So we believe that we must start today, because tomorrow would be too late. So we start today, and probably we would start asking the questions. Thank you, Andreas, already today. And then we can then reconcile how we are doing, maybe in few days or in few weeks.
Ještě jenom ten nový realismus, že vlastně tam zaznělo, já jsem to napsala, že být v kontaktu s živou realitou. Život to je to ten realismus. Že to je realismus.
Jo, díky.
Ale už otázka. No, jakože teď jsou tak hodně zahřáté, zároveň tam bylo nějaký podtéma a položil bych to do otázky, jestli jako součástí té nové reality jako vidí i nutný kolaps nějakých věcí, jakože no, jako, že nějaké věci budou kolabovat.
Ale vy můžete osobně, každý už to analyzuje.
Já vím, ale já jsem teď to jenom.
Okay, so there is a question from the audience. We are now in the new realism already, right? And the question is whether you see it necessary that in this new epoch of new realism there would be some collapses necessary, or like
What's necessary?
Collapse, you know, like some collapses, like whether we can avoid them or whether they are like part of the process.
Oh,
like some collapse, like societal collapse and all this, you know,
For
Greenland
example,
ice sheet collapse and some of these collapse. That's how I understand you. Yeah. That's a nice way to ask. Yes.
Right. So, yeah, I'd like to come to this in a different kind of way. I'd like to talk, like at some point, I do want to talk about the notion of what is involved in going through this process to this new realism or to the symbiocene, whatever. And yes, corpses, definitely. We're seeing them now. We're seeing them in Gaza. We're seeing them in the climate breakdown and refugees, where the corpses are all they are in our reality right now, if we open our minds to them. And they will be far greater in the future. And we have to feel that and know that. And this is what I'd like to just kind of go into right now. Maybe turn some attention to the darkness, which is what I was hearing from you, Andreas, earlier, just this question about how do we deal with this trauma? And I just want to share really some of my own lived internal experiences about this, which is, and it's kind of an irony in a way, or a paradox or something, that I'm spending my entire life writing about the positive and living into the positive. And every morning, part of my own kind of meditation affirmations I do, I say, like, I am a beacon of light. I am an agent of life, and I'm a beacon of light in the dark. This is how I define my life, what I am. And there is a lot of darkness in my experience. And I'd sort of say there's two clusters of darkness. One has to do with the sense of the absolute pain and the suffering that is experienced around in the world. And and sometimes I'll do like a medicine journey, you know, with sacred medicine. And I want to, oftentimes I find I want to turn to the joy of life, the beauty of life, and I feel it through me. And at the same time, there's this big part of me that says, how can I do this when there's so much suffering? How can I do this when the children in Gaza are being demolished, when their lives are demolished? I can't. How can I turn to this? And to me, it's a lot to do with the recognition of privilege that most of us here, I assume, looking at you and feeling you, and I can speak for myself, we live in a place of economic privilege, political privilege, cultural privilege, so much greater than the vast majority of other human beings alive on this earth, through nothing that they did, just the sheer lottery of where they were born. And so if I'm in the middle of experiencing this joy of life, I go, it's not fair, it's not right to allow myself to feel this when there's so much suffering. But I feel this is a challenge for me, because I feel, while that reflex, I believe, comes from a deep moral sense, I don't think it has the full answer, because what I believe life asks for us is to go into the joy, experience the joy, absolutely feel it through all of our cells, like live life to the fullest, to your point, Andreas, about life making more of life. But to me, that is only, this is my own way of being. I'm not saying it's right for everyone, but I can only allow that to myself when I know that I'm taking all the energy that life gives me, all that joy, the energy that joy gives me, and turning it back towards trying to alleviate that suffering, towards trying to make a difference, the most effective difference I can do, that to live my own life in health and longevity in many years, in order that I can take every amount of that to give myself to the benefit of life into the future. And that means other humans alleviating their suffering, other living, feeling sentient entities, alleviating their suffering and helping them towards something positive.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
I would just translate because this was really profound.
Good.
If it's okay, and
Go. Yes.
Tak. Já teda vlastně se říkala věrně, protože myslím, že to vlastně já jsem v tom nauku a vlastně ten proces zahrnuje jako ty kolapsy vlastně jsou nezbytnou součástí, jo, a vlastně oni už jsou v tuhle chvíli, protože se nám jeví jako Gaza, klima a budou větší a pocítíme je, jo, vlastně nemůžeme se jim vyhnout, jo, a na té osobní úrovni vlastně si pracujeme jako s tématem, to je vlastně odkazuje na Andrease a vidíme vlastně, jak se k tomu tématu pak třeba postaví Andreas. A vlastně Jeremy tady sdílel vlastně zkušenost jeho s paradoxy a to, že vlastně on to, co čte a o čem píše, je vlastně se snaží podávat ty pozitivní věci, jako vidět ty věci pozitivně a přijává to pozitivní. Ale zároveň vlastně kolem vlastně vnímá to vlastně utrpení a spoustu neštěstí kolem sebe. A je vlastně přesto, že tady on vlastně říkal ráno, že medituje, vlastně má určité afirmace, o tom tady hovořil, teď vlastně zmiňoval tu jednu, že vlastně já jsem aktorem života, jak se to činitelem života, jsem činitelem života, možná to říkala, jsem činitelem života, asi nejlépe. I'm an actor of life, an agent of life, pardon. A to nevím, ale pak teďka je to agent.
Jako
paprsek, jo, takže buď paprsek, anebo ten činitel, jo, takže jsem činitelem paprskem života a to je vlastně ta jeho afirmace a vlastně vychází vlastně nebo teďka si říkám, že to nedořekl, nebo jsem to nedopochopila, ale že vidí vlastně dvě oblasti temna, jo. A to je druhé, se asi vrátím, já se pak na to zeptám. Ta jedna vlastně, o které jsem rozhovořil, bylo vlastně oblast absolutní bolesti a utrpení. A jeho vlastně potřeby vydávat se na léčitelskou cestu. A vlastně takový to uvědomění, že vlastně on jako víc se chce vracet k radosti, chce žít radost, ale zároveň vlastně jak na to, když je kolem sebe tolik utrpení, jako jestli to vlastně jako tam byla otázka, mohu já si dovolit žít v radosti, když je okolo mě tolik utrpení a vlastně uvědomění si toho, jaké privilegium máme, protože žijeme v ekonomicky kulturně privilegovaném světě, ve které máme spoustu svobody a však jako vlastně máme ty pochybnosti, jestli to opravdu fér cítit radost, když vlastně jako je okolo tolik utrpení. A je to pro něho vlastně hluboký morální pocit a vlastně on si uvědomuje, že život po nás chce, abychom šli a prožívali radost. A že vlastně jako to, že tady to uvědomí, že já mohu prožívat radost, vede k tomu, že vlastně veškerou energii, kterou on z toho generuje, dává do toho, nebo veškerou tu energii, kterou mu to generuje, přispívá k tomu, aby vlastně umožňoval lepší život v budoucnu a přispívalo ke snížení utrpení vlastně stávajících a budoucích. Jo, takže jenom vlastně tady tenhle princip radosti a temna. A tu druhou oblast, to co říkám, a teďka jestli máte někdo tomu ještě něco, co jsem neřekla, co byste chtěli přidat.
Já myslím, že je to medicine journey, to je podle mě jako, že dělá nějaký medicínu pracuje, jako, že chodí občas na nějaký prostě.
Jo, já si myslím, že nějaký přesně nějaký, jako, jo, to jsem takhle pochopila, že to je vlastně roznáší. A něco k tomu otázku? Jo. Jeremy, thank you. And maybe because you mentioned that there are two clusters of darkness, and you spoke about this about the joy and darkness, and maybe if you can just add what you see in the other cluster.
Sure. Yes, I happily. And then let's turn to back to you, Andreas. But so there's another source of darkness for me each day. That's one. And the other is when I'm working on the positive, or I'm looking at what positive things people are doing, there is this big, big voice in me, the voice of the skeptic, the voice that looks at all of the destruction taking place, the power of the corporations, the power of the elites, the massive trillions of dollars being spent on military expenditures and the fortress Earth that is being formed. And there's this voice that says, it's a fucking hopeless cause. It's like, like, let's face it, we're headed towards either total collapse, nuclear devastation, or we're headed towards some fortress world where most people just suffer more and more, where some elites just sucks all the wealth like they've been doing for 500 years, but now they do it even more effectively with techno surveillance, and the powers are so strong. There's nothing, it's like hopeless, basically. And that voice is very strong in me. And I feel it's a voice of despair. And I feel it every day of my life. And as part of my work and my research and what I'm writing on, I'm looking, like you were saying, Andreas, every day I'm looking at this stuff. And I'm looking at the forces of the billionaires and with total control almost of all the media, people being conditioned around the world to just be part of this machine of destruction. And it feels hopeless. And so I have that voice in me. And how I respond to that voice is not to try to push it away or overcome it or argue against it. And the only way I can hold that voice is, and of all the voices, this is, I've learned a lot. My partner, Lisa, has introduced me to internal family systems and parts work. And it's so powerful because it's a way of taking all these different parts of yourself, holding them with honor, with dignity, and saying, I hear you. I recognize what you're coming from. It's everything you say is valid. You feel it's valid, but it's not everything. It's not everything. And ultimately, what is everything is to what you've been describing, Andreas. Everything is that we are alive in a world that is alive. And every moment, every day that we are alive, we have it in us to just turn towards what is possible in life. And I've long ago now, I've stopped trying to put a probability on it, because if I do, it's like the question, is this positive future? Is it 1%? Is it 5% probability? It's a low number in my view, but it doesn't matter. What matters is I am alive and I have this opportunity every day that this body, this organism is breathing, to turn myself towards the possibility of that life being fulfilled and flourishing in the future. And so I go through this every day of my life, but I try to do it without suffering, by just holding and honoring these voices and just becoming what I call sometimes a democracy of consciousness, where we have all these different parts. They all can be part of ultimately what is. But to give yourself up to despair, in my view, and to say, forget it, I'm not going to keep trying, to me, that is a narcissistic act of privilege and not acceptable.
Mm.
Because the people who are suffering don't have that option. They have to get up every day. They have to be out there, and they have to be like working to try to find some piece of food for their children to stay alive one more day. They don't have the option to do that. And I don't think we have a moral option to do that either.
Mm. Misha, you probably want to translate, and
Then it will be your turn, Andreas.
yeah. Let me just say one thing, because it's a direct reaction. Because before you said that very powerful sentence before the last sentence, that despair is actually privilege. I was thinking the problem about despair is that it's about you, and so there's this remainder of ego in it, and it's not something which comes from the side of life in which you are, but which you are not as an ego, and that's very interesting, actually. So I thank you for this. Okay, Misha, now I leave you to give some more of this wonderful language. And Jeremy, you're always nodding when they translate. Do you actually know Czech a little bit? You're kind of nodding.
I didn't even know that. That's interesting. I'm looking at the room, and
yeah,
maybe
no,
I'm
sometimes you're slightly nervous. I think maybe he has a he's a hidden Czech speaker, and he didn't tell me.
Tak, vlastně ta druhá oblast, kterou Jeremy vnímám. Každý den se dívám, co kde vzniká dobrého, co lidé dělají dobrého. Avšak vězí ve mně, nebo ozývá se ve mně hlas skeptika, protože vidím korporace, nerovnosti, války a říkám si, že to je vlastně, že jako mě to je úplně zbytečně cokoliv dělat. Jo, jako je to vlastně marný. A prostě, ať se ten kolaps nastane, v podstatě v tomhle, jakoby, jo, vlastně tak, je to takové to vzdání se, ve kterém je despair, ve kterém je beznaděj. Jo, takže vlastně mám tam ten hlas beznaděje. Ale v podstatě pak říká, co třeba s tím můžu udělat. Já mám vlastně to privilegium, že já s tou beznadějí, vlastně, že já se k té beznaději můžu postavit z toho privilegovaného postoje, že mám tu svobodu a vlastně možnost vlastně tu beznaději nějakým způsobem změnit. A že vlastně nemusím se jí nechat semlít, nemusím se s ní hádat, vlastně jakožto s jedním hlasu v sobě, ale vlastně můžu ji přijmout s důstojností a můžu jí říct vlastně můžu ji přijmout s tím, že vlastně všechno, co říká, tím souhlasím, ale že to není vše, že jsou i další. A v podstatě je to vlastně o tom přijetí principu demokracie vědomí, že je to jeden z těch hlasů, který vlastně zaznívají. Jeden z těch hlasů bez naději, ale jsou tam i spoustu dalších hlasů. Tak.
A mluvilo to mít jako interním rodinném systému, že to je vlastně jako určitá metoda, jak jako přijmout ty různé postavy v sobě. Přesně. Ale vlastně říct si, toto je jenom část. Jedna bytost, která...
Ty bez naději seš jenom jeden z těch hlasů, ale je tady vlastně jedno. Kdežto ti lidi, kteří opravdu v té beznaději žijou v té každodennosti, vlastně to privilegium nemají. A proto vlastně my, kteří ho máme, bychom vlastně měli reagovat tímhle způsobem a hledat to, co my můžeme. Jo, jako vlastně hledat ty příležitosti, jako co my můžeme. Jo, máte k tomu něco ještě?
Jakože něco jsem zde napsal, že morálně není možné se o lepší budoucnost nesnažit, protože to je narcisismus privilegovaný potom. Jako propadnout do toho zoufalství a vlastně nesnažit se o to lepší.
Jo, a
přesně to může být morálně přínos.
Jo.
A ještě jsi říkal, že k těm hlasům, co jsou ty, jako co je vlastně ta celá pravda, jako co je ta pravda, tak já nevím, jestli jsem to chytla dobře, ale že jsme živí uprostřed života, že každý den můžeme dýchat, že je prostě potřeba se obracet každý den k té možnosti uskutečňovat lepší budoucnost.
Jo, přesně tak. Jo, že vlastně to, co je klíčové, já jsem napsala to, že jsem živý a mohu. Jo, že vlastně, že mohu, že mám tu příležitost naplňovat kvetoucí život budoucnosti.
Vlastně to budoucí by se mohla jmenovat rozkvět, ne?
Aha.
Že
Jo, dobře.
se běžně používá.
Tak jestli máme ještě nějaké nápady, tak jako můžeme to tam vidět. Ještě někdo něco k tomu, otázky, podněty?
Jo.
Okay, so this was a summary. Andreas, we are curious, and Jirka just adds an option that he likes the word flourishing and a possible name for the epoch. You know, like considering the flourishing summary. Okay. Andreas.
Yeah. First, thank you, Jeremy. That's actually I realize that it feels very necessary for me to have this exchange actually, and I'm not having it in. I understand also. I'm dealing with it in an interesting way, which I want to explain, but I'm not really. I don't really have this peer-to-peer exchange or exchange with you. Let's say it like this. So that's actually it's doing me good to listen and to hear, and I mean I'm also sort of like naturally concerning my intellectual work and my teaching work. I'm always confronted with fresh samples and of loss, and as I'm coming from biology and I'm an ecologist, I also have the eye to see this loss where many people don't see it because they don't see it because they're not trained. And it's this already old sentence, like 80-year-old sentence by Aldo Leopold, the US father of ecological ethics, who said, an ecologist is living in a world of wounds. And, he said this in the 1940s, 85 years of options passed. And so I see this, and that, I mean, that's my particular take on dealing with this. And I can tell you that I'm living in this constant angst, this constant dread, of seeing good friends go. I come back into my Italian village and I'm hoping that everything will be like I will meet the same people. I mean, the same butterfly people and swallow people and river people. And then there are these things chopped away. Like they had the idea to somehow do some ugly draining work in the wild river where there's a bridge over it. And I always looked at it and I always just felt like kissed by the wildness and determination of this river. And now some excavator did something, these are the wounds adding up. And what I perceive is somehow that what this process actually is somehow that the manifest life fades away. It diminishes. It gives me the feeling that it's somehow there, but it's also no longer. It's not longer on the side of manifestation of appearance. It's like, everything fades and the colors fade, and then there's the picture. It's just only white, but it doesn't mean that it is gone. And that's where I want to come to. So I mean, that's as I told, I live in this constant sorrow of loss, which is there. And as I see it, I see it, and as long as it happens, it's there. And as long as I don't see a huge turning point, it will be there. And I will be in this feeling of profound grief. But in these last years, or maybe last 15 years, or when I started to understand that this is a process of loss, it's already a process, you know, even if you stop it now, it's already huge loss.
Mm-hmm.
And something is happening. And I said that life is somehow changing the side, and life is going into the invisible side, but it is still there. And that's my slightly esoteric point I want to make.
Mm-hmm.
And because there is not only the material side we see, and we are all somehow trained to only work on the side of manifestation and embodiment, and all ecology is somehow on the side of embodiment, and we want to save it and make it better. And we are always working on this side, but there is the whole invisible side. And we are part of this invisible side because life comes from the invisible side. Life comes from the desire that life be, and that is something which is totally unmanifest. But it's still there, and we even have it in our heart. I mean, that's our heart actually. It's the desire that life be, and this. So in a way, I feel in the last years that this side becomes more prominent. It's very interesting. I feel that the invisible part of reality becomes bigger, and all the insects who decided that most humans are so ungrateful that they will just go because, you know, they don't want to live with people who are not able to reciprocate. So they go. They say, I don't want to be here. I go. But they, you know, they are still on the other side, and we can also go on the other side, and that has always been a job for humans. It has been the job for humans to focus their hearts on the invisible side where life springs from. That's the job of the people of power in indigenous cultures. That's the job of rituals which sing up life. That's the job of Buddhist meditation for the benefit of all beings. That's the job of the Sufi meditation of the heart, is to join the inner power with the life-giving power. And that's what I'm more and more doing. It's really very interesting. That's what I'm more and more doing. And the interesting thing is that I know that on the side where life is the desire that life be, that nothing can ever be destroyed. This is absolutely untouchable. You know, this is not where humans can reach. There's something which is totally safe, and which might even require to go through dark times. So there's also a very paradoxical relation to this, and I think, you know, before I made so much propaganda for just right now starting to act in the way that life benefits directly. So that is just the outer side. So that's the side of our actions. But the mysterious and the magical thing is that we also can do it with our emotions. We can do it with our heart. I mean, you know, loving has always these two sides. When you really love somebody, you're acting so that this being can become more alive. And you also feel this. You have this profound feeling, this profound inner desire, and this profound bliss that this being exists. So we already, while we are engaged in love, we already act on these two levels. So we we can, and the interesting thing is that the inner level expands when we train ourselves on the outer level, but we can also go deeper on the inner level, and just go deeper on the inner level. And that's something that all cultures always did. And we are the first culture who thinks, and who thinks that this is somehow, this is esoteric. Probably some of you, or maybe all of you, or many of you think this is actually pretty esoteric. This is typical for our culture. It's the first culture which thinks that humans cannot do anything with their hearts. And that's a tragic error, because that is our power. That is the human power. That's the true human power, is to use our heart to work in solidarity with the life-giving universe on the inner level, on the inner planes, in the invisible realm. That's what we can do, and that's what we need to do. And the crazy thing is that I think that's what I wanted to say, that the devastation and grief and trauma is directing it to us to do this. So because that is the only thing we can do. You know, it is like there's this Buddhist teacher, which was the first teacher of my biological teacher, Francisco Varela, Chögyam Trungpa, who always said, if you really want to dive headfirst into Buddhism, let your heart be broken. Mm-hmm. You need a big heartbreak. You know, you need to be in total despair. So, Jeremy, you see, despair might even be needed, because then you realize, then you really crash on rock bottom, and then you realize that there is still something remaining. There is this glow. There is something remaining, and this has something to do with ourselves. And this is something we can be loyal to, and we can work in favor of, and we can enhance, and we can make bigger. And we can only do so by not trying to protect ourselves. So that's the link to what you said. This is about selflessness. This is to be walking away from our egos, and this is about selflessness. But this is a huge area. It's maybe, like dark matter. It's much bigger actually, but nobody does it. And I mean, of course, people do it. Of course, in traditional societies, people still do it. I mean, they are the only ones. The guys in the Amazon, they do it. Of course, they do it. And probably, I mean, maybe even if they didn't do it, all these traditional people who didn't do it, then everything would have already vanished into the invisibility. I mean, these people hold this because the Western people think this is just not real, but it is. So that was my little publicity for the unseen world. The Sufis say the heart. I'm only talking about the heart. The heart is as big as the universe. The heart is as big as the universe. It's the unseen, life-giving dimension of the universe. And we have it here. It's there.
Okay, thank you, Andreas. So now give us just time to translate and come back. Tak.
I will have some more water.
Já to zkusím vlastně nějak hrnout, protože to bylo takové, Andreas vlastně mluvil o svém konstantním strachu, referoval vlastně ekologickou etiku a vlastně svoje žití a vlastně svůj strach z toho, že pokaždé, když se vrací na to stejné místo, kde žije, v té vesnici, tak má vlastně obavu, jestli najde ty bytosti, které tam potkal vlastně ve stejném stavu, jestli je vlastně tam potká, ať už jsou to lidé, nebo motýly, nebo řeka, jo, že vlastně teďka vlastně ta říká, že si sebe určuje sama sebe jako bytost, ale teď tam třeba viděl nějaký stroj, který tam něco tam zkoumá nebo něco tam dělá, tak vlastně to v něm vyvolává pochybnosti a vlastně strachy. A vlastně zmiňoval to, čeho si všímá, jakým způsobem se manifestuje život, že má pocit, že se vlastně že se přestává, nebo že ho vidí méně manifestovat se vlastně v tom jako tím vizuálním, nebo jako tím viditelným. Jo, a vlastně nazval to, že má pocit, že vlastně ten život okolo vadne. A vlastně, že on sám prožívá každodenně strach ze ztráty. Jo, vlastně zmiňoval tam velký strach ze ztráty, ale to se na druhou stranu vlastně říkal, že si uvědomuje, že ho nevidí, neznamená, že není. Jo, že vlastně ho to vede k tomu vlastně si uvědomovat, že jsou nový, jako jemnější způsoby vnímání toho života a že on tam je, ale vlastně je potřeba ho vlastně prosvítit. Jo, takže vlastně zmiňoval tam tu úroveň cítění a vlastně velké role domorodých kultur, rituálů, meditací, které vlastně nám můžou pomoct zprostředkovat vlastně to cítění a vlastně napojení se na ten život, který se stává méně a méně viditelným zrakem. A tak. Já ještě myslím, vlastně, jak tam hovořil o tom, o lásce, jestli k tomu něco máte, protože jak mám těch poznámek hodně, tak teďka zakončil to vlastně to citací nebo sofickou, že srdce je tak velké jako větší než vesmír. To znamená vlastně jako bavíme se o kapacitě lásky. Jo, jako, to tam hodně referoval vlastně z různých pohledů. No. Tak,
ještě mám, že vlastně jako o té ezoterní stránce mluvil, že to vlastně on taky sám teďka dělá, kdy vlastně jako propojit tu neviditelnou stranu toho srdce a toho cítění s tou životodárnou silou. To jsou vlastně dva principy, které jako je potřeba spojovat. A že o to se on jako snaží taky v té své praxi čím dál tím víc. A že to je jako ta magická věc, kterou můžeme každý z nás dělat. A konkrétní příklad tam uváděl, že třeba když někoho milujeme, tak vlastně zároveň podporujeme ten rozkvět jeho života. Že to jako ta láska, to vnitřní, to neviditelné, zároveň se manifestuje na tom, jako, že ten člověk opravdu rozkvítá jako taky na díky tomu vztahu.
A ještě možná to ještě vlastně takový, já si nebudu ještě, co mi tam slyšel, takový vlastně jenom podnětný, že vlastně tam referuje k naší západní kultuře a k tomu, že vlastně, která vnímá, že vlastně cokoliv je teda vnímaný jinak než viditelně, je ezoterické a tím pádem vlastně nedůvěryhodné. Jo, tak jenom
jo, že
a že vlastně nemůžeme udělat nic s láskou, že vlastně tam je vlastně taková ta velká nedůvěra vlastně k lidem.
To je kultura, která nevěří v sílu našeho srdce.
Jo.
Já to než řeknu anglicky, pak česky, je to v pohodě?
Můžeš. Jo.
So, Andreas, I think I know what you are talking about, but I think it's up to like one's temperament probably, because I couldn't live just like with love to unseen. Like for me, the way is to fight, and it's possible to fight with those destructive forces. But I think it's important to fight with love to the life in heart. It's not like fight to be a hero or like to, I don't know, maybe compensate some inner forces or something like that, but more like to fight for preservation of life. And we succeeded together with one colleague here and many others. Some 10 years ago, we were protesting against destruction of forests in national park, and we succeeded. We physically blocked the machines, and we like kind of saved like big, plots of protected forests. So we protected those ecosystems, and like for me, this is the way. And of course, it's because the power of money is really strong. So of course, in many cases, we will be defeated. But because like for me, it's unthinkable that I will just like watch this destruction without action. Like for me, this is the path, and I just wanted to mention it to maybe a little bit balance this like description of strategies how to cope with the world how it is. Tak jo, česky. Že jenom, jakoby, že rozumím Andreasovi, co říkal, ale že to je asi jakoby otázka temperamentu, že já prostě nedokážu jenom jakoby přihlížet té destrukci s tím, že jakoby, jako s tou láskou pro ty neviditelné věci, ale že prostě myslím, že jako cesta je boj, že před 10 lety se hnutí Duha povedl prostě velký protest, že jsme blokovali na Šumavě těžbu prostě v Národním parku. A vlastně jsme uspěli, protože jsme fyzicky prostě blokovali ty těžby, takže se tam odtěžilo mnohem méně, než by se odtěžilo bez toho. A že jsme vlastně takhle jakoby ochránili ty ekosystémy a tu přírodu a že jakoby si myslím, že jakoby nějakou alternativu může být taky jakoby bojovat, ale ne bojovat, aby jsme se stali hrdinama nebo aby jsme si něco kompenzovali, ale jakoby spíš jakoby bojovat pro tu ochranu toho života. Že se to jakoby dá dělat, když samozřejmě jakoby síla peněz je veliká.
Tam je ta síla toho života.
No, ale že spíš ta strategie je taková, že spíš jakoby, no, tak jak to popsat, já nevím.
Can I just get back to this very shortly? It's a wonderful story, and I'm very happy you managed this. So please don't. Maybe I didn't make myself clear enough. I don't say don't do this, only love. You know, I not at all. This is absolutely will be the outcome when you act so that life be, that you very quickly will be at the point where you need to be very courageous. So of course that's included. What I wanted to say is that our culture does not see that there is a human arena of action and a human place of power which is on the inside of the world, which is in the non-manifest world, because it's not part of our culture, because our culture has somehow cancelled this from reality, but it is there. And when we privilege love in our action, we are already very close, because this invisible realm of reality is about bringing forth life. So it is a loving vector of reality, but it's a two-sided process. We are not confined to act only on the outside, and that's very important. Anines, the eco-philosopher, said humans in our culture underestimate themselves. We think we are only these causal agents. That is not true. We are not causal agents. Nothing is just a causal agent. And that's incredibly important, because I'll suggest a little thing to do together at the end of this session. We can be very powerful, but nobody does it. Nobody does it. We all think we have to be only active on the plane which we are taught is the only reality, namely the plane of objects. But it's not true. It's not true.
In fact, let me just add one layer to what Andreas said, and then maybe we'll do the translation. But it's occurring to me that it's as if those who are engaged in the actions, but not coming from the place that Andreas is just describing, their actions are likely to be counterproductive, because they're not necessarily coming from that sense of that true, universal, all-encompassing love, which it's as if, I mean, it almost feels to me like the theme of our discussion today wasn't intended, but the theme is almost like how the inner and the inner becomes the outer, and the hidden and the invisible becomes the visible. And it's like those two need to be understood as being like a yin and yang, part of our total reality. And to focus on one at the expense of the other, either one is not sufficient to really fulfill what we are as living agents.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I totally agree. Yeah, it's very important to say. I mean, this is our difficulty as our culture, is that we it's so difficult to hold both these things together. You know, there's always this either or. So either you're for action or you're for contemplation. But but it's important that only both together give reality and create reality. Yeah, that's very, very important.
And let me just add one more thing. I'm sorry, and then we'll do the translation. But it reminds me, there's this wonderful quote from a Neo-Confucian sage from 1,000 years ago called Wang Yangming, which really resonated with me. I quote him in Weber Meaning. He says, "There have never been people who know but do not act. Those who are supposed to know but do not act simply do not yet know."
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yes. Yes. Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Já se nepamatuju celý, když jsme se to bavili. Tak. Já zkusím Baro, jestli mě taky v tom pomůže, že... Jo, já jenom přemýšlím, jak to vlastně, když jsem tady dala poznámky a už jak je taková pozdní hodina, tak přemýšlím, co z něj vytáhnu, víš, jako jo. Zmiňoval tam, že lidé naší kultury se podceňují a vlastně mluvil o té vitalizující v síle nebo o privilegování lásky v našich životech a vlastně té síle. Nebo té lásky, která dává vlastně tu
reakci vlastně na
sílu. Jo, to byla vlastně ta reakce. No. Jo, a že to vlastně, a to teďka skočím, že to vlastně může projevovat, ať už v té akci nebo v té kontemplaci. Jo, jako, a že to není nikdy jako buď, anebo, což my máme tendenci vlastně vidět buď anebo, ale to je vždy i to, jo, anebo, jo, že vlastně spíš jakoby vidět jakoby ty možnosti, že jsou v té integraci. A vlastně ono na to navedl Jeremy, který vlastně, který tohle zmiňoval. A který vlastně navazoval na to, že pokud vlastně, že vlastně akce z lásky jako je v pořádku, vlastně pokud je ta láska navázaná na universal life, tak vesmírný život, můžu říct, na vesmírný život, ale pokud by nebyla, tak vlastně ta akce je spíš to, co se pak jeví jako kontraproduktivní čin. A vlastně pak hovořil o tom, jak se vnitřní stává vnějším a viditelným, jo, a naopak vlastně Pavel o tom principu jít a jak, a nakonec vlastně Jeremy zmínil ten citát, který jako možná tě poprosím, jestli to můžete.
Já to tady mám přesně si to musela říct poslední. Že jako neexistují, nebo nejsou ti, kteří vědí, ale nečiní. Že to jako není možné, tato situace, ti, kteří vědí, ale nečiní. Ti, kteří se tváří, že vědí, ale nečiní, ještě opravdu nevědí. No. A že prostě mně přišlo, že to sdělení bylo, že prostě to musí být vlastně oboje. Ty síly, že musí být propojený, ta vnitřní, ta láska a prostě to napojení a ta vnější akce.
To bylo zásadně, že je to obojí.
Že je potřeba obojí. Ani jedno, ani druhý zvlášť, ale obojí jako dohromady.
A uvědomuješ si to třeba z té blokády, když tam bylo tady to obojí.
No tam právě na to šlo, jak jsem to říkala, že tam byla, to ne jako bylo, ale to vím, že to se třeba
ale máme 6 minut, nebo 7. Tak nevím, jestli si dali prostor ještě jakoby dotazit, než tady touhle aktivitu, možná pak můžeme tomu dát prostor převál, jak jsem se pade. A vlastně, když máme 7 minut, tak já bych možná navrhla, protože byly otázky, já bych třeba Martin měl nějakou, tak jako vlastně tak jako jenom, I would suggest because we have a few more minutes left, so that just if there are any questions which may arise here, tak máte někdo něco, co byste chtěli dodat, nebo co byste se chtěli zeptat?
Misha and Jirka, I'd propose to do this little meditative exercise together, which is, it takes maybe 2 minutes. It's very short, but I'd really like to do it because I think it's the moment to do it, actually. So if this is okay, please then keep it in mind. I mean,
no questions yet. So I mean, it's the time now for the exercise.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. So what I actually would like to suggest is that we, for the last 2 or 3 minutes, we take the earth into our hearts. And I'll explain a little bit what I mean with this. A little bit explanation has already been given, and those who were there this morning, they remember that they had the occasion to take the swallows into their hearts. So first, it's important that you feel your heart, and your heart is where you actually it's the experiential center of your existence. It's where you feel your emotions. You feel them in your chest. So just try to feel this. It's this slight sweetness which accompanies your being all the time, even when you're very sad, this spark in your chest. So really feel this. And you know, okay, sorry, go, Misha, please go.
Just to follow the exercise. Vlastně cvičení, který asi zhruba na 3 minuty a v podstatě prvním krokem je pojďme vlastně cítit srdce, vlastně to místo, kde vznikají emoce, těm můžeme proštětit, můžeme se tam třeba trochu cítit, že to srdce je a napojit se na něj.
Okay. And for the Sufis, I already said, the heart is as big as the universe. So don't be afraid. You can take anything into your heart because it is as big as the universe. And sorry, there's some traffic outside. Yeah, maybe you can translate this.
Tak Sufii říkají, že srdce je tak velké jako vesmír, takže se vlastně nebojme tu kapacitu toho srdce zvětšit a vlastně vidět, kde ten náš vesmír končí.
So that's also our direct contact with reality. That's our heart.
Umožníme našem srdci být v přímém kontaktu s realitou.
Okay, and now I suggest that we just sit for some minutes and just do this, and we all take the earth into our hearts. Do a little meditation, a little heart meditation.
Vlastně sedět, vnímat vlastně naše srdce, které je tak velké jako vesmír a propojení se zemí.
Yeah, so that's something which you can also take with you and do whenever you feel overwhelmed by this grief. You can take the earth into your heart, and that's, you know, when you're desperate that love is lacking for you, then you can turn it around and you just ferociously love. That's a way to ferociously love, and you can feel the soft blue oceans in your heart, and the green forests, and the most beautiful spring meadow you can all hold in your heart. Yeah, thank you for this.
Thank you. Thank you, Andreas. And thank you to Jirka and to all of you for even though I don't speak your language, I feel like I've been so much attuned with the field of where you are all at in that room together. I feel I'm right there with you, and I really feel a deep respect for the journeys you're all on together in this in these sessions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we want to also thank you, Jeremy and Andreas, for being with us also in this late night, and for accepting actually to use this space for discussion, and being then more present with us than only with the session or with the lecture. So this is really something what we appreciate.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, Jeremy, thanks for saying yes. That was just this sort of like crazy idea to say, hey, we could have a chat. I actually wanted to have this chat for 8 years now, and we could have it.
I love it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you.
Thank you for thinking of it, Andreas. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and I have to think up really a sequel to this, because
yes, exactly. We must do more.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was so important for me. So
yeah,
again, thank you.
that's great. Okay, bye.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Goodbye. Good night to Prague, and have a beautiful day on the West Coast.
Yes, and good night to you in Italy. Okay, bye.
Bye.